I'm Vicki, Coach Vic with Basic Para Stuff. It's Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, and guess what I'm going to do? I'm trying to make some videos about spinal cord injuries. And today we're going to talk about how I sustained my spinal cord injury. And I got my wonderful husband here, Coach Bob. I like having him around,
yeah.
So he's going to
I figure we
chit chat together.
Start out with some of these. So, yeah, look at this. And look at that. And look at this.
What are you doing?
And look at that.
There's some pretty cool pictures in there. I made this photo album about 2 years after I got hurt to help me keep me motivated on where I was and where I've become.
So obviously they saw pictures of you running. Why don't we start there, Coach Vic?
The first thing that comes to mind, because I got hurt at 23, so the years before that, I was known as Vicky the Runner because I used to like to run a lot. So of course, high school, I ran, started my 10th grade year, and ran at 10th, 11th, 12th grade, cross country and track, and then I got a scholarship, and then I went to the state meet, did very well, and then I was athlete of the year, and got a scholarship to St. Thomas University.
So what you're saying, let me give the Reader's Digest version. You were kind of a big deal.
I was, but I didn't realize it then. Now that I'm much older, I realize that, that was pretty cool.
So the main reason you learned to run was to get away from all them fellas that were chasing you.
Exactly.
All right.
I mean, I did more things in life also besides run for fellas and run.
Sometimes you ran to the fellas.
But anyway.
It's Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month. Back then, you had no idea that you would ever be hurt, that you would never be in a wheelchair.
Nope.
You don't think about those things. Those things only happen to people out there in Never Land. It could never happen to you. But it did happen to you. So let's talk a little bit about that. Now you're from South Florida, but you ended up in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Yes.
And one night, decide you're gonna go to Disney. You get in the car one night with your fella. Y'all gotta go see Mickey. You gotta see Mickey, and you gotta see Mickey now. So you get in the car and you go to Disney.
On our way to Disney. Never quite made it there.
Okay, looking back, decisions, getting in the car and those sorts of things, let's back up. If there's anything that because I've watched Coach Vic go through this thing with children, with our children, and how she has a fear of them getting hurt. And she's learned in her life a lot of things. And those lessons are not paranoia. They're called wisdom. And she has wisdom now. So Coach Vic, why don't you talk about when you got in the car, what you would do differently now? Should you have gotten in that car? Or maybe you should have gotten in the car just at a different time, or maybe not at all.
Well, like you said, we're on our way to California, heading out to Los Angeles. And it was at 1 o'clock in the morning, which now as a mom, I tell my kids, please don't go out at 1 o'clock in the morning. Because only drunks and tired people are out at 1 o'clock in the morning, and they don't drive well. So that is a fear I do have of them getting hurt late at night. So anyway, we left at 1 o'clock in the morning and traveling out on a desert highway.
And y'all had both worked. You were getting off work.
Get off work.
So y'all were tired, and she was drunk.
Yes, and as we're driving, minding our own business, quietly driving on the desert road, another girl was out at a party, having some fun, and she's picking up some fellas, and then they get to her car, and as we're driving, she's driving, there's an intersection, and the story is told, kaboom. She runs the stop sign, hits the driver's side of my car, and I was told the car flipped, landed on this roof, and I told I was laying there, seat strapped in, crying and screaming, saying I was hurt. And there was a man apparently behind us in their car who called 911. Cell phones were not popular in the 80s, but luckily they had a cell phone. And they called 911, and at some point the paramedics arrived. Jaws for Life was used to cut me out, and I was transported to Antelope Valley Hospital, I believe it's called.
I want to clarify what you said, because I think that you kind of you did the old Krispy Kreme, you just glazed over it.
Oh yeah.
One of the things that I was told, and as I've spoken to Vicky's mother and father and her family over the years about the accident, and Vicky also, is it was more than I was hurt. I was saying I was hurt. Here's what I was told. First off, I was told her pocketbook was virtually completely filled with blood.
See what I learned.
She was covered in glass and blood for days.
Yeah, that's true.
And she was hanging upside down in a car, bent over double, screaming, "It hurts, it hurts." It's a lot different than just being hurt. Just telling that story, I have a hard time getting through it. I've been married to her for 20 years, and still, the idea of her hanging upside down in a car.
Wow. I must have
That's just, I can barely, I can't.
But what he's saying is true, but the thing is, maybe because it's more emotional for him, the whole story is I was told what happened because I was not awake when it happened, and I woke up 3 days later, but I don't remember it happening.
Right.
I remember my last memory before the accident was driving down the deserted road, stopping and getting gas, and then getting chocolate milk and a Snickers bar.
It was a Yoo-hoo.
Was it a Yoo-hoo?
That's what you told me.
I don't remember. So I didn't remember that. I thought it was chocolate milk. Maybe it was a Yoo-hoo. A Yoo-hoo and a Snickers bar. What a terrible combination that is.
And you were wearing white cat shoes, I know that.
Yeah, I like my white kid shoes. And the capri, those little legging capri pants that were just coming into style. And it was a red t-shirt, I think.
Now, one of the things that we talk about destiny. We talk about fate. How God brings us to places in our life. And we don't question why, but we do believe in divine providence. So don't ever think that we're playing some sort of victim card or anything like that, because that's not the case. But oddly enough, we've had the conversation. What if in the parking lot you'd have just stopped and tied your shoe?
Yeah.
That
second.
little bit of time would have been enough space for that car to go through the intersection and the accident to have never occurred.
Right.
That's how easily your life can change.
But yeah, true. But the last thing I remember was stopping and getting that stump for the gas brake. So when people tell me when I hear stories about the accident and how it happened, I am just listening to stories because I was not aware of any of it until after I woke up. But like he said, the purse was covered in blood. Now that he said that, I remember now, my mom actually kept my purse and showed me it, 30 plus years ago, which I just totally forgot about that. So anyway.
So here's a picture of Vic just before the accident, hanging on this little bridge. And she looked beautiful. Now, we'll flip this page. Right here. That's what the car looks like. And right there, that's what she looked like in rehab. It's funny to me that this athletic, beautiful woman is still an athletic, beautiful woman. I would think, because I am a weak, fragile creature, I have no reason to claim otherwise.
He's not very weak, he's very strong.
It would be difficult for me dealing with what she's dealt with.
Don't even. You can't do this.
I don't handle her pain well. I handle my pain well. I love Coach Vic. I think that's coming across here. I hope.
Yeah, he does.
More than me just being a sissy. I love Coach Vic. And when I see pictures of her run, I never got to see that.
I know. I wish he did.
I wish
I still could.
The day I met Coach Vic, she was in his wheelchair. What you're seeing is the only Coach Vic I've ever known. Now, I've read stories, I've heard stories, I've seen pictures, I've heard all of the stories from everyone. But this is the Coach Vic that I know and that I love, and she's athletic. Now, Coach Vic, I'm going to ask you a question, and this might not be an appropriate question, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Do you think you were more of a person then, or more of a person now? Or do you think it's pretty much the same, or a lot didn't change? What do you think?
Well, a lot changed. I used to say, and maybe I still say, that I was more of a person then. I had freedom to do what I wanted. I had my whole body to do what I wanted, and there's a lot of things I miss doing. I'm older now, so I feel like I may say I was more person then, but now I've been living in my wheelchair been paralyzed for 31 years. I really am so used to living this way. I just feel like I'm a regular person.
That's because you are.
Deep down in my soul, a little bit, I feel like the little bit of peace was taken away from me. It could have been a huger piece taken away from me, but I just feel like it's a little piece now.
Huger.
When I wake up every day, I just feel like I'm a person, me, just getting around and living my life and take care of a family. When I think about that young girl being silly and the silly things I used to do, things that I can't do, skip around the room and jump around or just get the freedom to go wherever you want. It's just different now, but I'm so used to what I'm doing now.
So you get in the car, you're driving down the road, you go to sleep, you get hit, you wake up.
Well, let me go back to I got hit. So the girl hit us, we're upside down, the paramedics come get us. What I learned later about the girl, she had met two guys, and one of the guys got killed. And one guy wandered off, as they said. I don't even know the story with him. He wandered off, and they found him later, like in the woods or in the desert somewhere. So I really don't know what happened. But anyway, the young lady who was then like 28 at the time, yeah, she got 6 years in jail, but only served 3. Yeah, that wasn't too cool. I get kind of bitter about that. It is what it is. So anyway, fast forward, I'm in ICU right now, laying there for 3 days, have no idea what's going on. And the story is told, as my mom says. The nurse walked in there, like every day they walked in there, the nurse walked in there trying to wake me up, and all of a sudden they would tap me. And I was told that she tapped me really hard on my chest, and I still have I think she broke my sternum because there's a big bump on it. But anyway, she hit me so hard that my mom said my eyes just popped open. I woke up. So that's kind of like how I woke up after 3 days of being unconscious. And then of course all the doctors come in. Can you feel your feet? Can you feel your legs? Can you move? And I'm like, no. They did the pin test and all that. Nope, can't feel anything. And I remember just laying there and I went like this. Like, oh, I could feel my arms. I could feel, my stomach, my arms. And I'm like, well, if I can't run, a wheelchair race. That was the first thought in my head. Weirdest thing ever.
And you did.
And I did. And there's a whole story about my wheelchair racing. Fast forward, I did wheelchair race for like a whole year. But anyway, I'm in ICU, so I stayed in ICU for about a week, and then on a rotating bed, choo, 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 so you don't get sores or whatever. And that I got so antsy at one point in ICU that I kept pulling the IVs out and trying to pull the stuff out of my nose and my throat. So they had to strap me down. They literally strapped my hands down because I kept I would try to reach over and grab things off the tables and stuff. Anyway, on my way now to Rancho Los Amigos Rehab, which a lot of people who have spinal cord injuries might know.
So how long were you there?
Okay, that was July, so I probably got there at the end of July. So I stayed there all through August and September, and I actually left there in October because I was a model patient. Actually, I was pretty good. I behaved myself. But I was on bed rest for 5 weeks though of that time because my back was still broken and it had to heal, and they opted out not to do surgery because the break wasn't severe enough. Even though you won't have back surgery, your bone will heal with a curve. You'll have a kyphosis in your back. But I ended up getting surgery later on. That's another story. But yeah, I did get surgery later on. Then they come in there and they give you the mold. They get a mold of you to get a body cast made, like the little plastic back brace called the turtle shell. Although I got the color blue, so they wouldn't call me the turtle shell, but they called me turtle shell anyway.
It's a blue turtle.
I got a blue one. So I did my rehab for all of August, for the whole month with my little turtle shell on. They take you out of the bed, the nurses put me in this little sling thing to get me out the first time and sit in a wheelchair. And I was like, wow, I'm really sitting in a wheelchair. It was kind of weird. I really am sitting in a wheelchair. Now that brings back memories. Ooh, memories you don't even think about. Ooh, it's that's why I don't like to talk about it, because I don't like to talk about it. That's probably why I don't want to talk about it. Anyway, yeah, they put you in, it's kind of weird. So I'm in my wheelchair now with these big stockings on your legs and your hair's all in a mess and you just look awful. Because I got a picture of people taking pictures. Back then we had cameras. They took still pictures you couldn't get developed till weeks later.
So with it being Spinal Cord Injury Awareness Month, what is something that you think would benefit or would be a benefit to us or to you that people should know about a spinal cord injury?
Well, when I was in rehab and the first time I got out of the wheelchair and sat down on the mat, I remember my body being so wobbly. I was like, wow, that's just weird. And then sitting there and not being able to feel myself sitting there. I don't think about that now, but sitting down for the first time, like on the mat or whatever, it's like, wow, I'm sitting here, like, where is my bottom and where are my feet? The perception of the ground was so far. I look at that ground was like so far away. And then you look, when I remember seeing other patients doing their rehab, I'm thinking, they look drunk, they're so wobbly. Then I got like, ooh, I must look the same way because you don't have any balance. Learning about spinal cord injuries and what paralysis meant in high school, but I didn't realize you're taught that you can't move. And they might have taught you can't feel, but when I heard about people being paralyzed, I just thought they couldn't move their legs. Didn't realize they couldn't feel. So now when I became paralyzed, I'm like, oh, you really can't feel it. But you don't really know what that means until it really happens. You can't feel anything. So that was very weird, very strange knowing someone's tapping you and you have no idea. You know, I'm used to it now, but back then, you know, you're learning about it. And most people probably, when they have their level of injury, where your spinal cord injury, where it's broken, where your spine is broken, where your feeling stops, that level, like there, it's really sensitive. If you just touch that level of skin, it's very, very sensitive.
In a bad way.
Yeah, in a bad way. When I first got hurt, a t-shirt couldn't even sit on my stomach. I mean, I had a hard time with my shirt just sitting on me. So, and then blankets would not touch my stomach for years. I'd have two blankets, one for my lower half and one for my upper half, and I would have this line on my stomach exposed without a blanket on it. I did that for years, and I cover now, but for years, I didn't like anything touching my skin because it hurt so bad where my injury was.
I think most people think, okay, you know, you get in a car accident, you get paralyzed, you can't feel your legs and you can't walk.
Yeah.
I think that is most people. Certainly, you know, I've been married to Coach Vic now for close to 20 years. And so I understand a little bit about paralysis at this point. But back then, I was like, well, okay, so you can't wiggle your feet, you know, or you can't feel your legs. But it didn't dawn on me all of the other things associated with it, the pain, the discomfort, the spasms, the this, the that, the other. There are a lot of things that go along with it. I challenge people to make sure that they go out and be kind. Be kind to others. Go out of your way to actually be kind. If you see someone in a wheelchair in the meat department and they're looking up at something, they probably can't reach it. Be kind enough to step into that bubble and go, hey, you need me to get something for you up there?
And I've noticed a lot of people do that, and I've learned how to use that on occasion. If no one's around, I kind of wait, and then as soon as somebody comes by, I'll start looking up. But that could be another whole video. But it is nice when people do stop, you know, to help.
That awareness, to me, now I know Coach Vic is more the physical side of her disability. With me, it's more the need side. I don't see it from the physical side because that's just Coach Vic. I know her. That's what it is. But it's the need side. I feel that I have to have some sort of intentionality about it. I have to be aware of what she needs.
He does a good job at it.
You go through the hospital situation, you go through rehab, and then you leave and you go home. How'd you get home? You're in California, your home's in Miami. How'd you get home?
On an airplane. It was a very interesting flight. You learn a lot in rehab. Rehab is not real life. You learn everything in real life. Now rehab, I'll give you credit to all the nurses and all the OTs and all the physical therapists. Kudos because there's a lot I did learn from all of them. But the minute you walk out of that rehab center and you go to real life, it is a completely different venue. And you have a lot to learn. And there are days, I mean, just from leaving the hospital and getting back to Fort Lauderdale, Davie, Florida, for anybody who knows Davie, there were a lot of tears in those 12 hours, I guess, by the time we got home, by the time we got there and got back, a lot of tears and frustration and a lot of firsts and like, what do we do? I had no idea what to do. No clue. And when we made it, it was tough. It's amazing what you can learn to do.
So one more thing before we close up this episode. Because the next episode, we're going to talk about the first 5 years. Because I think the first 5 years were very forming and long lasting in Coach Vic's life. But I'm going to ask you one more thing. You leave South Florida, runner girl, and you come back. wheelchair.
Oh, I just remember some stories.
Did you feel embarrassed? Did
Yes.
you feel upset? Did you feel sad? Did you feel what was it the first time you go into a room and there's your twin sister or your friends or people who knew you in high school as Jock?
Oh man, I forgot their story.
What was that feeling that first time you're around those friends, you get back from rehab and boom?
I try to have a smile on my face almost every time. But boy, inside, it was sad. I'm looking at me want to cry. And I'm not a crier. Don't make me cry. It was sad. It was very difficult. And I never thought about the word embarrassing, but I guess it was embarrassing, humiliating. And I know all these people say, oh, I lived my life great. It is hard being paralyzed, especially those younger years, with a smile on my face. People didn't know how hard it was inside. And I didn't let that, I don't think I told anybody over that before. I'm thinking about it now, because he just made me think of some stories. Being the outcast and being the one that you're being stared at, because people did stare, and even my friend, being stared at and being, I can't handle it. I can't talk to you now because I can't handle it, or being not, your friends don't come around anymore. It was hard.
You know, one of the things that I want to come out of this, because as a guy that has the privilege of being on the end with Coach Vic and knowing kind of her secrets and her feelings, one of the things that I see that is not troubling, it's understandable, is people get hurt, and as all of us, we go into a defensive mode. We have to protect ourselves, because if we don't, we'll fall apart. I don't want someone who's out there who's hurt, who has those feelings, and think they're alone. Because you're going to look around and everyone else is showing strength and courage, and they feel good, and their life is normal. While inside, they may or may not really feel that way. And Coach Vic is one of those people who's very strong, and I guarantee you appeared to be the strong person who had it all together. And so 30 years have gone by now, and she can look back and she can be honest with you about those feelings, because those feelings are way back there. And hopefully, if you're going through that today, if you got hurt in the last decade, and for her, when I met her, she was 10 years in this thing. She was still dealing with some things. I look at her life now, she's a completely different person. But I think sharing those vulnerabilities about that first 10 years is so critical for people who are out there hurting now. It's unfair to a young person who is 18, 17 years old, who is falling apart, who feels like their life is over, to think that no one else struggles with this. They need to know their peers, the people they look up to, that they struggle to.
And I may be 30 years in it or 31 years in it, but and all the younger ones, or those who've been hurt for 1 or 2 years or even 10, I think they cannot relate to someone who's older or been hurt later. The similarities are, trust me, they're there. And
Coach Vic and I often tell the kids that we coach, the difference between them and me, I have a little more wisdom. Coach Vic has a little more wisdom. But the biggest difference is when I look in the mirror, I don't see a 17-year-old kid. I see an old man. But I still feel like that 17-year-old kid.
We're older, but we still feel like we're, 20 years old or whatever, 17 years old or whatever. But when you were talking about, I remember specifically going to the mall one day, and I was at a Hallmark card shop, if anybody remembers those, Hallmark card shop, looking at cards, and this young man, boy, whatever you want to call him at the time, walks in, stands next to me, not knowing who I am, looking at a card. I look up and I recognize this person, and I wanted to go run. Couldn't run. I wanted to go run so bad and get out of there and hide, because I don't want this person to see me. So of course I couldn't go anywhere. As I decide I'm gonna leave, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna go, hey. So I went, hey, Jerome. Hey, how you doing? He looked at me, and Jerome was the top runner at my high school. We ran together in high school. And I looked at him, and he looked down at me, and he about turned white as a ghost. And he's like, what are you doing in that chair? Or what's wrong with you? What are you doing? Or something like that. He was shocked. And it made me feel like, what do I do now? And I try to laugh it off. And he's like in tears. I'm trying to laugh it off. It was very awkward when I look back at it now. So if you're out there, Jerome, I remember that moment.
That leads me to one more question, and I'm sorry if I'm drawing this out too long. Do you ever feel like that people are in such shock that as opposed to them comforting you, that you had to comfort them?
I did a lot of comforting, yes. Because people don't know what to do. They just don't know what to do. I used to roll around when I first got hurt with my turtle shell and I put my t-shirt over the turtle shell. I went out and bought a shirt that said, "Shit happens." And I was so proud of that shirt because, I was so proud to wear it because, stuff happens. But that was just probably hiding my vulnerability, I guess, because I wanted to appear to be strong. And it was really hard.
But the truth is, you are strong, and you were strong, and you made it through it. And if you're struggling, that does not mean that you're not strong. You can struggle and still be strong.
Yeah. And then I remember another time, there was one story I also remember feeling like really sad on the inside, but trying to be strong on the outside. A group of friends came by to say hi, to come visit with me. And they all walked to the door. They're all dressed up, in their jeans and high heels and flowing hair and their fancy shirts, getting ready to go out in the town. And they all came in and sat all around the couches, and like 10 of them just sat around. And I sat here like this in the middle of them all. And I remember sitting there feeling so awkward, sitting in my spandex shorts and a little t-shirt, and feeling very uncomfortable because they're all dressed real pretty and going out in town. I just sit there telling them, and yeah, I got hurt or whatever. And then about 20 minutes later, they all got up and left. And it was like, I felt so alone. It was the weirdest, it was so weird. But they were trying, but man, it was tough.
So, all that aside, now I have to ask you. In fact, I'm going to paint a picture here. You've been married 20 years. You've raised 3 beautiful children. One is a successful nuclear guy in the Navy. Another is a daughter with high-functioning autism that was basically told she'd never talk and would never be able to do anything. She works a full-time job and lives on her own. And our youngest, who is married and on their own. And so you've raised 3 successful children. You don't have to loan them money and bail them out, and you raised them, and you raised them well. You're married, not bragging. Everything's paid for, we're debt free. Our life is what you see right here. This is our life. This is how our life is all the time. We don't have to go to work. We have retirement. Everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're paralyzed, but how's your life?
My life is great. My life is great. I'm paralyzed through all those little sad little stories you heard. Yes, I'm paralyzed. But my life is great. I've got a great husband. I've had the privilege of not having to work. And I'm going to advocate for that right now. If you have kids, staying home is the ideal way to do it. So I am so blessed to be able to stay home and not have had to work. My mom didn't work. My sister didn't work. And I didn't have to work. And those are blessings.
By the way, we're not throwing rocks at people who have to work.
Right.
Don't take it that way.
No, but
the privilege of raising your children and knowing that you're the big influencer in their life, you're the big rock in their life.
So I'm glad I got to stay home and watch all of them grow up. I took being a mom very seriously, and that was my job, and that's what I did for 19 years. And now they're not here anymore, so now I'm trying to find new things to do, and here I am, YouTube. So life is grand. Anything that a mother does for her kids, I've done 100% independently, from sun up to sundown. So there's my story of how I sustained a spinal cord injury with a few extras in there. In my next video, I plan on talking about my years 1 through 5 on how I got started with my life after becoming paralyzed. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and to like and share, because you don't want to miss years 1 through 5. And then there's years 5 through 10, and then 10 through 15, and 15 through 20, and another good episode on how I met my husband, because that's a great story too on how I met him and how our relationship has stayed so strong. So keep following this channel, help build it by subscribing, and watch it to get those minutes up. And remember, you can if you try, and you can if you cry, and I ain't crying. So thanks for watching.